Operation Torch, launched on November 8, 1942, marked the first major Allied amphibious invasion of World War II. This campaign was designed to seize control of French North Africa, which was under the control of the Vichy regime, an ally of Nazi Germany. The operation aimed to open up a new front in North Africa, to relieve pressure on Soviet forces fighting on the Eastern Front, and to prepare for future operations in Europe. The invasion consisted of 3 primary landings: Casablanca in Morocco and Oran and Algiers in Algeria. These locations were strategically selected to provide a foothold for further operations in North Africa. The forces that participated in Operation Torch were a mix of American and British troops, signaling a joint Allied effort to weaken Axis influence in the region. The Vichy French forces stationed in North Africa initially resisted the Allied landings, leading to brief but intense fighting in many areas. Despite the resistance, the Allies made significant progress in a short time, thanks in part to pre-planned negotiations with key Vichy leaders who were sympathetic to the Allied cause. These negotiations helped reduce the extent of armed conflict and facilitated the swift occupation of key areas. One of the critical objectives of Operation Torch was to secure major ports and airfields, which were essential for maintaining supply lines and supporting future operations. The successful capture of these facilities enabled the Allies to establish a logistical base for the continued campaign in North Africa. Controlling these points also allowed the Allies to increase air support for ground operations. Weather conditions played a significant role in the operation's execution. The Allies carefully selected the date for the landings to minimize the impact of adverse weather on their naval and airborne forces. Despite some rough seas, the conditions were manageable, allowing the landings to proceed as planned. This highlighted the importance of weather in large-scale amphibious operations. As the operation progressed, the Allies encountered varying levels of resistance from Vichy French forces. In some areas, like Algiers, Vichy troops surrendered quickly after limited combat, while in other locations, like Oran, fighting continued for several days. Despite these challenges, the overall resistance was less than anticipated, and the Allies were able to secure key objectives within a week. The success of Operation Torch had significant strategic implications. It allowed the Allies to establish a foothold in North Africa, setting the stage for the subsequent Tunisian campaign. The operation also forced the Axis powers to divert resources to North Africa, weakening their presence in other theaters of war. Additionally, it increased pressure on the Vichy regime, causing internal divisions and further isolating it from its Axis allies. Operation Torch was also a significant diplomatic effort. Allied leaders worked behind the scenes to convince Vichy commanders and political figures to switch sides, or at least minimize their resistance. These diplomatic negotiations played a critical role in reducing the overall bloodshed and ensuring a quicker resolution to the conflict in some regions. The operation led to the eventual collapse of Axis forces in North Africa. With the combined pressure from the Eastern Front, the Allied landings in North Africa, and subsequent battles, the Axis was unable to maintain its foothold in the region. This was a key moment in the wider North African campaign, which concluded with the defeat of German and Italian forces in Tunisia in 1943. Another key element of Operation Torch was its impact on future Allied operations. The success of the landings provided valuable lessons in amphibious warfare, which would later be applied in the invasions of Sicily and mainland Italy. The coordination between American and British forces during the operation also helped strengthen the Allied coalition, setting a precedent for future joint operations.